So Donald Trump confirmed that they're completely modernizing the Treasury, the Federal Reserve, payments inside the United States.
I have an executive order for your attention relating actually to government payments. Historically, checks issued by the Treasury are, I believe, 14 times more likely to become the subject of fraud than electronic transfer payments. This is an executive order that's going to push the Treasury Department to modernize its payment system to ensure that where possible they're using electronic methods of payment as opposed to paper checks in order to reduce waste, fraud, and abuse in the government, which is obviously an endeavor that we've been pursuing in numerous aspects of government under your leadership.
And also, starting August 1st, roughly 1 week from right now, payments will start for the tariffs coming back into the United States. And if you guys remember this, when Donald Trump officially signed a strategic economic partnership with Saudi Arabia, well, it's no coincidence why Ripple's CEO Brad Garlinghouse and Stuart Alderati met with Donald Trump before XRP was added to the digital asset stockpile, also including Solana and Cardano. So when Donald Trump says they have other modernization programs, well, it's no coincidence why in this video he's talking about payments through the banking system. So what company, what technology is specializing in this? Well, that's Ripple, and that's the cryptocurrency XRP.
Many Americans are unaware that behind the scenes, the technical backbone of the financial system is decades out of date, many, many years out of date. You know that. Paul and others are straightening it out, but payments and money transfers are costly and take days or even weeks to clear. Under this bill, the entire ancient system will be eligible for a 21st century upgrade using the state-of-the-art crypto technology. Who would have thought we would have been saying that?
So in today's video, we have to break down exactly what's happening in the markets right now. We have to talk about Bitcoin's net unrealized profit and loss, the NUPL chart, to show where we are in this market cycle. We also have to talk about what I discussed in the video yesterday and how that's playing out on the charts right now for Bitcoin. Also for XRP as well too, with XRP experiencing a sharp sell-off, what that looks like in the short term and what I'm expecting. Also divergences that you guys need to look for. Plus Ripple now holds 64 active money transmitter licenses, including MTLs in the US and Dubai Financial Services Authority in the UAE, with 11 more jurisdictions pending like the European Union, the United Kingdom, and Singapore. This is not a coincidence here, guys. They're setting up the payment rails and Donald Trump is confirming it. And now CEO of Galaxy Digital, Mike Novogratz, made a shocking prediction that you need to hear about. So we're going to talk about Ethereum to Bitcoin's price chart, also Bitcoin to the global liquidity index, and Donald Trump's plans with tariff income that is going to absolutely skyrocket the crypto market, on top of the Genius Act that was just signed, what it means for corporate companies, Fortune 500 companies, with stablecoins, and when alt season is expected to start for the people that think the bull run is over. Well, we are just getting started for the next major phase that is going to absolutely melt faces. So if you guys are holding altcoins right now, this is going to be one of the most important videos that you watch this month. So comment 777 if you're feeling blessed, if you're feeling bullish. Let's run it. All right, bull runners, welcome back to the channel. So Donald Trump signing executive orders to completely modernize payments in the United States. Well, with tariffs hitting August 1st, these other countries are going to start having to pay billions back to the United States.
The date that you gave of August 1st, right. Why stick with the date if you're saying that
payments start on August 1st. The only thing that's really sacred about August 1st is that's when payments start. So they have to start paying billions of dollars to you and people. Are you a citizen of the country? Yes, sir. All right, good. You'll be very happy because you're going to be getting a lot of money.
So Trump is just making these massive power moves. And so I think the crypto market is far from over this bull run. And as they pave the rails for the new financial system, well, everyone knows that Ripple and XRP is going to be at the center of it all. The real question is when, not if, because it's undeniable at this point. Listen to this.
Under this bill, the entire ancient system will be eligible for a 21st century upgrade using the state-of-the-art crypto technology. Who would have thought we would have been saying that?
Seriously, guys, who would have thought Donald Trump would be saying that? So what's the state-of-the-art crypto technology that can upgrade the whole entire financial system? Well, I think you already know the answer to that. So the real thing that people want to know is how will that affect the price? Because price moves off of global liquidity, it moves off of demand, a lot of speculation right now because XRP's price, is mostly speculative because it's not necessarily taken over yet globally. It is used in some corridors in some countries at a smaller scale than what it will be over the next few years. So we need to look at other indicators and other charts for confluence to see what's the most likely scenario to happen next. And one of those is the Bitcoin net unrealized profit loss chart right here. This is called the NUPL score. And so you guys can see here in blue the NUPL chart right here, and then also euphoria, belief, optimism, hope, fear, and capitulation based on like psychology of a market cycle, emotions that people go through during each phase of the market cycle. And so what we need to look at is previous cycles of where we've been on this NUPL score right here in blue at the peak of the market. And so as you guys can see right here, all the way back in 2013, well, the NUPL score was at 83% when Bitcoin's price was at $658. And it stayed in euphoria and greed for this blue NUPL score right here while we were in the euphoria phase of the bull run cycle. The same exact thing happened at the top of 2017. Well, the NUPL score was upwards of 78 right here when the price was nearing, almost $20,000, and then it dipped to about 77. Also, the same thing happened right here around the peak. The NUPL score was a little bit lower, it was about 70%, so nonetheless above 70% when the price was upwards of $57,000. So where are we right now in the NUPL score? Well, we're at 57%. We're not quite up to 70%. We've been coiling up in a symmetrical triangle on the NUPL score, whereas Bitcoin's price continuously makes higher highs and higher lows. And so just from this indicator in this chart alone right here, it shows that we're not quite yet to the euphoria phase of the market cycle on the NUPL score. We're in belief, we're in denial right now, where people think that a recovery is possible, but we haven't yet gone into thrill and euphoria. So that's a big indicator that we have much higher to go. Now in the short term, volatility was expected. So in my video yesterday, I explained this for Bitcoin when it was at around $118,000 to expect a bounce back into this descending resistance right here. And sure enough, that's pretty much what we saw. Bitcoin was right here and we saw a bounce back into this descending resistance, and then Bitcoin selling off further to the downside to break below this horizontal support to come all the way back down to about $116,000. In fact, Bitcoin actually dropped even below that and came down to 114. And now we're coming back up into this zone right here to test it as resistance. And so because we flipped support at about 116, even support all the way back here at about 115, these zones right here need to be reclaimed as support in order for Bitcoin to remain bullish. Otherwise, there's going to be massive sell pressure here as the stochastic RSI gets closer and closer to 100 for another bearish cross. So I would err on the side of caution, just aping in right now, because we just broke through support and now we're back testing it as resistance. And so personally, I would just wait for Bitcoin to clear this zone right here and then hold it as support while the stochastic RSI resets all the way down here below 20. Also, the relative strength index is sitting at 49. So I'm leaning a little more bearish in the short term right now for Bitcoin, and I would want to see it clear around $116,000 and just hold it for a day or two on end, as this massive liquidity flush is taking place of long traders right now. So odds are in favor of a bearish move to the downside actually for Bitcoin. Now, it could not take place this way, but we just look at probabilities and we also look at confluence here. You have to be adaptive. You can't be rigid with the market. You can't be like, oh, we're just going to go up forever. No, you're going to get wrecked. You have to look at confluence on these key indicators, and you have to see where we're at to determine your investing strategy. If I just clear the chart right here, and if you're just using confluence across the stochastic RSI and the relative strength index, what you want to look for is very, very simple to get better entry points. You want to look for both these key indicators to be as close to zero as possible, or let alone below 20. So for example, on the stochastic RSI, we were all the way down here while the relative strength index dropped to about 24 on the hourly chart. And sure enough, where was price? Price was at around $115,000. Now, what we want to look for that I talked about in previous videos is divergences. And so I'll just explain a bullish divergence again for you guys so you can truly understand how to get the best possible entry point, not just based on confluence on being oversold on indicators, but using confluence of being oversold on indicators with a bullish divergence, which further increases confluence of a better entry point for a bullish reversal. All right. So you might need to rewind that 10 to 20 seconds to listen to that a few times over so it makes sense for you, because when you pair up confluence on oversold conditions, stack that on top of a bullish reversal, then, or a bullish divergence, then you guys could be able to get even better entry points. Because if you're just buying when we're oversold, for example, if I zoom in here for you on Bitcoin's price chart, you can see right here on this breakdown for Bitcoin, as I predicted in my video video yesterday. Well, look what happened on the key indicators here. The stochastic RSI formed a bearish cross up here above 80 when the price was around $119,000. Also, the relative strength index was at 54. A lot of people that are coming in and they're buying at a point like that and they're not looking at these key indicators get absolutely wrecked. And that's not my opinion. That's actually just a fact. Look at the price chart. You guys can verify this for yourselves. So I'm not BSing you here. You can look at every single candle. You can see how much Bitcoin dropped over the period of, let's just measure it, over the period of 15 hours, it dropped 4%. So it's not the craziest drop, but nonetheless, you want to get a better entry point, right? So when you look at these indicators reset down here below 20, if you're just buying when we're down here, for example, you see we drop all the way down here to 0 pretty much, then we form a bullish cross. Also, the relative strength index dropped down to about 29. Let's say you're buying at 29. Well, you would have been buying Bitcoin at anywhere between $117,000 right here at support, thinking that we're going to bounce to the upside, which, you know, arguably is a better entry point than $119,000, but it's not the best entry point. Or you would have been buying all the way down to about $115,000, anywhere between this range. So you would be like halfway to break even if you like kind of bought right in the middle. You know what I mean? So how do you get an even better entry point? You use divergences stacked with oversold conditions for confluence. And so first thing that I look at is, are we oversold down here? The answer is yes. The answer is yes for the relative strength index as well too. Now, what do we want to look for? We want to look for a lower low on the price chart. Boom, right here. We see a lower low on the price chart and a higher low on these key indicators. So what do we see right here? We see a higher low on the relative strength index right here. Sorry, the stochastic RSI right here. We see a higher low on the relative strength index as well at 28 versus 23. So when we see that happen and we see this higher low come in on these indicators, it shows that momentum is shifting from bearish momentum right here to eventually bullish momentum to the upside. Now, the key to understand here is now that we are experiencing bullish momentum to the upside and we are coming back into the zone of resistance right here, I do not like to buy into resistance while we are all the way up here in overbought conditions on the stochastic RSI and the relative strength index is in the middle of a range. So we're neither oversold nor are we overbought on the relative strength index. So that alone for me, I just don't take trades usually when that happens, right? Even though Bitcoin could technically break out and let's say you buy right now and it blasts all the way up here and does something like this, then continues higher. Yes, you'd be getting a good entry point, but you're just guessing at that point. And you're not using really a good strategy for yourself buying into a resistance like this when indicators are in overbought conditions. That's not smart. You want to look for divergences because had you have bought that divergence, you would have been buying Bitcoin at around $114,000 down here at the low while the stochastic RSI was making a higher low and the relative strength index was making a higher low, the price chart was making a lower low. And if you just look at this divergence cheat sheet right here, it's exactly what a regular bullish divergence is. Price chart makes a lower low in blue and the indicators make a higher low. And we had confluence as well too across both indicators making higher lows. So that even strengthens the bullish divergence. Let's say we just had a bullish divergence on the relative strength index, but the stochastic RSI was making a lower low with the price chart. Well, it's still a bullish divergence. It's just not confluence across two indicators. So when you see confluence like this, it's an even stronger trade. It's an even better trade for yourself. So now that you guys know that, well, let's look at XRP's price chart and let's compare it to Bitcoin and what we're seeing right here and how we saw, you know, a bearish divergence on Bitcoin's price chart compared to XRP. Also, I broke this down in my video yesterday. I talked about the most likely bottoming formation for XRP before we break back to the upside compared to what happened for Bitcoin. So I'll slow it down for you. On the left-hand side of the screen, you can see Bitcoin's price chart. We made a higher high right here from the 7th of January to the 22nd of February. What happened on the relative strength index? We went from 89 overbought conditions all the way down here to 79. That's the start of a bearish divergence. Now, a bearish divergence might not just be one point of contact on the price chart and the indicators. It might be 2, 3, 4 as the price slows down in momentum before dropping, but we still form higher highs. So for example, from the 22nd of February until roughly the 14th of March, we formed another higher high on the price chart. Look at what happened on the relative strength index. We formed another lower high. So that's boom, 1 point of contact, 2 points of contact for a bearish divergence. Now you can see momentum is slowing down a little bit. It's not as drastic of a higher high, but what happened here from the 14th of March until the 14th of April? We formed another higher high for 3 points of contact. At this point, when you see the third point of contact and you're still in a bearish divergence, that is a very strong sign that a reversal is going to take place either right after that or after the next point of contact. We don't usually go 4, 5, 6, 7 points of contact in a bearish divergence, forming higher highs on the price chart and lower highs on the key indicator. So at this point we had, this, I don't consider, for me personally, the first one is a point of contact. It's just really the start. I consider this the second, this one the third, this one the fourth at the peak. By the time we reach the fourth and we're still in a downtrend on the relative strength index right here, and the price chart's forming higher highs, that is clear as day. This is a massive bearish divergence. And also you can see on the stochastic RSI, we were up here at 90 and we formed another bearish cross. If you would have exited right there, that would have been the pi cycle top indicator right there, flashing at that point. Now the pi cycle top doesn't use divergences, it uses actual moving averages, and I've covered that in previous videos. We don't need to talk about that in this video because this is just really about divergences and what's happening on the XRP price chart. But we saw this major breakdown right here. We broke this support. This was a major sign right here that a reversal was coming, because on this complacency dead cat bounce right here, it was now a lower high on the price chart, and the relative strength index matched that for a lower high. Then we see the indicators catch up with the price chart, and we form lower highs, and they just match each other rather than diverging in different directions. And also you can see a bearish divergence on the MACD for confluence as well too. The stochastic RSI is a little bit harder to see because it fluctuates between like 100 and 0, more so than the RSI or the MACD does. So I don't really use the stochastic RSI for divergences. I use the RSI and the MACD, and then I just use the stochastic for confluence of overbought conditions while we're in a downtrend experiencing bearish divergences as well too. So I hope that makes sense for you guys. Again, if you guys want more education about this, then consider joining our one-on-one accelerator program. I believe spots might already be full actually. I think we're at like 25 plus. So we only have like less than 5 spots. Maybe they're already gone by the time we're watching this video because the team is handling those applications. If you guys want to apply to work with us and our entire team and get, hands-on coaching and training to truly understand these concepts, fill out the form in the description below. If it's full, then you could join Altcoin Pro University and you can learn at your own pace by going through the technical analysis essentials course inside the classroom, along with everything else that you'll learn back there. It's absolutely incredible. But let's now compare Bitcoin to XRP and let's see what was taking place, because right here you guys can see XRP formed a high right here at $3.28 and then formed another higher high at $3.66, and it was breaking out at that point. Well, what happened on the relative strength index? We went from about 80 right here to form an equal high, or a little bit lower of a high, and I consider that an equal high. So that's a weak bearish divergence. Once we see a weak bearish divergence, it's still a divergence nonetheless. It's not that strong, but we saw a regular bearish divergence right here on the stochastic RSI. At 97, we see a bearish cross, and then by the time we reach that peak, we were all the way down here at 67. And so it's not necessarily the strongest confluence on the RSI, but it is a divergence nonetheless on the stochastic. And so we saw XRP's price pull back a little bit right here, similar to what happened for Bitcoin between $58,000 down to $42,000. And then we see a bounce, okay? And we see a bounce up here to an equal high on the price chart, but yet a lower high on the relative strength index. And so what that is an exaggerated bearish divergence. So the price chart can either make a higher high while the indicator makes a lower high, or the price chart can make a lower high while the indicator makes a higher high, or the price chart can make an equal high while the indicator makes a lower high to be a bearish divergence. So there are different divergences, and this is why it's important to use this cheat sheet, study it so you can truly understand it. So an exaggerated divergence is what we saw here. Price chart made an equal high, whereas these key indicators like the relative strength index here at the bottom of the screen made a lower high. And then also you can see a lower high on the MACD as well too. And so XRP's momentum had completely stalled out by not going into price discovery by the 21st of July. And so XRP just hovered right here. Technically, this was an ascending triangle, which usually is a bullish formation, because we break to the upside. But you don't want to buy in the apex of a symmetrical triangle, of an ascending triangle, of a descending triangle, of a rising wedge. You want to buy the breakout in the back test. And so that would either be a breakout like this and a sharp back test like this for a continuation to the upside, or it would be a breakdown in a back test of a key, support zone as resistance. And so that's kind of what we're seeing right now. We saw this breakdown and we almost saw a back test. XRP couldn't muster up enough momentum to come back up. Similar to what happened to Bitcoin right here on the left-hand side of the screen, it breaks down. It doesn't muster up enough momentum right here to come back up to back test this support right here at about $50,000. Instead, it forms lower highs and lower lows, until eventually we reverse to the upside. And I explained this in my video yesterday about how that's what I was expecting for XRP with this aggressive breakdown right here. And sure enough, what are we seeing? That exact same thing play out. And so the price broke down, and then now we're forming lower highs, lower low, lower high, lower low. Ultimately, I would expect this to be a lower high and inevitable, maybe lowest low, before we inevitably break this descending resistance and try and form some type of revival pattern similar to what happened right here for Bitcoin between about the 24th of July until the 7th of September. And so what we're going to be looking for here is what? Divergence and confluence, okay? So if I just zoom in on the price chart here, and I'll just clear XRP's price chart and I'll clear Bitcoin's price chart so you can truly understand this, is look right here in the upper left-hand side of the screen. Bitcoin's price chart was forming lower lows right here. And if we're not including the wicks, if we're just including the candle body closes, they're lower lows. Technically right here, it is a lower low from like the 19th of May until this wick right here on the 19th of July. So it is a lower low regardless of how steep it is, depending on if you measure wicks or candle body closes. And then if we look at the stochastic right here, we can see it was a little bit of a higher low right here, somewhat equal, but a little bit of a higher. The MACD as well too formed a drastically higher low. So that is a bullish divergence right there. And also the stochastic RSI went from 23 upwards of 34. So that is confluence across all three indicators of what? A regular bullish divergence. Price chart makes a lower low. Key indicators make higher lows. And we have three of them doing that. Strong bullish divergence right here. So what's going to happen at this point is we're going to reverse to the upside. All right. So let's look at XRP's price chart and let's just see where we're at right now. Okay. So we can see right here the lowest low for the relative strength index is at 19. Okay. Where were we on the price chart when that happened? We were right here at about $3.20 for XRP. Now it's very clear. Boom. We form a lower low right there on the price chart. Where was the stochastic RSI? We were right here. When the RSI was at 19, where were we at this point? Boom, right here, higher low. Where were we on the relative strength index? Right here, higher low. Where were we on the MACD though, however, was a lower low. So let me circle this. Sometimes this gets a little goofy because these little symbols are in the way to minimize or maximize this. But you guys can see right here, it was a lower low. So we had confluence across the stochastic, the RSI, but we didn't have confluence on the MACD. So it's not necessarily the end of the world, but because look at that, XRP, boom, reverses to the upside, but we did not form a higher low than this high right here. In fact, we got rejected from it, and now we're still in a downtrend right now. So we need to clear $3.27 and hold it as support for a trend reversal. Otherwise, we're going to remain in a downtrend similar to what happened like this for Bitcoin, where this rally right here was just a fake out rally, and ultimately we're forming a much more macro bullish divergence like this, to where all of a sudden now you guys can see technically there are divergences within a divergence that you can see, but on these reversals we still continue to downside. So XRP could still form a lower low on the price chart to look something like this, whereas we form a lower low on the price chart and then the stochastic forms a higher low, and the relative strength index could technically form a higher low as well too on this pullback before reversing to the upside. Because now look at the MACD. We formed a bullish cross well below the zero line all the way down here when XRP was at $2.97. And so imagine if we pull back and the MACD forms another higher low. That would be confluence across all three indicators for a much bigger bullish divergence reversal to the upside, which would play in line of what happened for Bitcoin's price chart all the way back here on the 19th of July. So this, in my opinion, would take out these levels back here as support before we reverse back to the upside, because until we see a trend reversal, especially for Bitcoin right here, until we clear this level at like $116,800 and we hold it as support, I think momentum is in favor of the bears right now, and we're just going to range, and we could even reverse further back to the downside. So err on the side of caution, but we have some bullish news nonetheless taking place from a fundamental perspective, because Ripple now holding 64 active money transmitter licenses in the US and Dubai Financial Service Authority approving in the UAE is absolutely massive, guys. They have 11 pending in other unions, and they're going to continue to expand in these other countries. Plus, many of you know CEO of Galaxy Digital, Mike Novogratz. Listen to what he said about Ethereum over the next 3 to 6 months.
What do you make of some of the other coins? So Ether, we just had somebody on this week putting together the equivalent of an Ether micro-strategy of sorts in terms of a leveraged bet that other people are going to be able to buy into. Also, everything's getting tokenized. We've talked about stable coins. Right now, if you could buy Ether or Bitcoin, which do you buy?
You know, I own both. Listen, Ether's caught up a lot. It feels like if ETH takes out 4,000, it goes into price discovery. And so we feel kind of destined to at least knock on the 4,000 ceiling a few times. The narrative of Ether is really powerful, and the market was really short. And now we have not just, one, we have two major ETH treasury companies and another one coming, and they're raising capital every day and buying Ether. And so there's not a lot of supply of ETH. And so I think ETH probably has a chance to outperform Bitcoin in the next 3 to 6 months.
And the reason why this is super important is because if Ethereum starts outperforming Bitcoin over the next 3-6 months, well, what does that mean for altcoins? Is institutions are going to start turning their eyes to the mid caps and micro caps a little bit later in the bull run cycle this year. So when we look at Ethereum to Bitcoin's price chart, Ethereum's just been underperforming Bitcoin in a downtrend. And in the short term, we actually are forming a trend reversal, putting in a actual higher high than the high of the 19th of May. We just need to put in a higher low right here as we come back to this descending resistance. And potentially we do something like this for Ethereum before we end up, breaking to the upside. We will see what that chart pattern looks like. But in my opinion, we're going through something similar to what we went through right here on this revival pattern for Ethereum. And so on the contrary, though, if you look at the stochastic RSI, we're at 98 and 98 for the K line and the D line. The relative strength index is right here, but that's typical for a breakout formation where we break out, we experience a little short-term pullback and consolidation right here while the stochastic resets. And what that would mean is like Bitcoin actually breaking to the upside. So we need to watch Bitcoin's price chart very closely and then also keep our eyes on Bitcoin's dominance because Bitcoin is experiencing a short-term relief rally after dropping to 60% dominance right here, which means altcoins would bleed out a little bit harder than Bitcoin if the markets continue down for like XRP and Ethereum while Bitcoin just holds a tight range, because Bitcoin could just go sideways while altcoins bleed out, causing Bitcoin's dominance to go up in the short term. But inevitably, I would expect Bitcoin's dominance to continue to break down if ETH to Bitcoin's price chart breaks out. And so right now, look at Bitcoin's dominance right here on the relative strength index. We dropped down to 11. We're experiencing a little breakout right now. Also, we're in the middle of a range on the stochastic RSI as well too. I'll just clear the MACD so we can just keep it simple with these two. So we could experience a little bit further to the upside for Bitcoin's dominance, just meaning altcoins bleed out more to Bitcoin, but then inevitable reversal back to the downside as altcoins start outperforming Bitcoin as global liquidity continues higher. Because if we look at the higher time frames right here, Bitcoin followed global liquidity's pullback almost exactly. Then global liquidity ran to Bitcoin, which would be about $140,000 for Bitcoin. For a 5-year-old cycle, the blue line is following the red line right here pretty much to the T. There is a little bit of a lag time right here, but ultimately we are still going through the markup phase right now until we get to the Wyckoff reaccumulation towards the end of this year for Bitcoin and the rest of the market. And with tariff money coming back into the country, listen to what Trump said right here.
Do you think there's the possibility of a rebate to the American public in terms of all of that money?
We're thinking about that, actually. We have so much money coming in. We're thinking about a little rebate, but the big thing we want to do is pay down debt. But we're thinking about a rebate. That's a very good question. You just made a lot of news. We're thinking about a rebate because we have so much money coming in from tariffs that a little rebate for people of a certain income level might be very nice.
So you guys know what that means. It's basically stimulus checks for low middle class income Americans. So this is bullish for risk on assets because it jogs people's memory of what happened last time this took place, and that was right after COVID when the markets absolutely erupted. People had more money in their pockets. They were willing to spend more money, and they were willing to invest more money because they saw people making millions of dollars through like Dogecoin or Shiba Inu or XRP or these other cryptocurrencies. And so they started dumping money into their Robinhood accounts, their Webull accounts, their Coinbase accounts. And so Trump, turned around the whole Genius Act by bringing, the congressmen and women necessary to pass the act into the Oval Office and talk them into it. And sure enough, now he signed it into law. So this is really bullish, not just for the crypto industry, but it's bullish for every Fortune 500 company. Listen to what Brian Armstrong, CEO of Coinbase, said.
We're going to see the Fortune 500 really start to adopt stablecoins. We've started to see this a little bit already, even with the news that this was, going to pass in the near future. Coinbase just launched the an integration with Shopify, for instance, and we've seen announcements from Walmart and Amazon, and almost every Fortune 500 company is now coming in and starting to look at stablecoin payments. And so this is a big opportunity for us. It's a TAM expansion for our business, and we think that we can provide these wallets and payment APIs for really, the whole financial system and every company eventually.
So every alt season in history has started in August. It's the same setup every 4 years based on global liquidity, and Satoshi was a genius enough to basically program Bitcoin's halving cycle based on global liquidity. And in a few days, according to Crypto Nobler here, low caps will explode massively. Saw this exact same pattern in 2021, and he flipped $350 into 210K. So looking at this chart right here, we shall see if this plays out. But here's one thing to note. Tech Dev posted this saying, we literally just did this for Bitcoin as well too, from 2021 to the breakout past the high, and now we're doing it on a more micro time frame on the 2-day time frame candles versus the 2-week. And so this is just another cup and handle formation. So if we take the depth of the cup, put it at the breakout point, that puts Bitcoin's price chart target between like $160,000 to $180,000, which would bring us to the end of the bull market cycle on the next leg up. And so there's no talks of a top until this red line happens right here. And so he marks this up with, I don't know what, he doesn't usually say sometimes what indicators he's putting up here, but it's relative to the past, and you guys can see where we're at on this major, top on the euphoria stage of each market cycle. So it shows we have further to go here. Also, this one right here, I don't even know what he's using, but it looks pretty cool. I like looking at this type of stuff because it shows that we're just barely above for altcoin market cap. We're not even above the all-time high. I mean, look right here on the price chart. Look at what happened to altcoins. And I talked about this on this breakout right here. I said, get ready for something like this. And sure enough, what happened? Well, after we went through this little bull flag right here, I said, watch, after we're done consolidating through here, we're going to explode to the upside. Sure enough, I'm 100% right. And, I don't say that to stroke my own ego here. Really, I don't care. Like if we went to the downside and we exploded, well, I talk about that scenario too, but the most likely case scenario, just based on macro market conditions, was an explosion to the upside. And that's exactly what took place. Now I talked about watch. We're going to come back into this zone right here as resistance, and we're going to consolidate at it, doing something similar to what happened back here and just experience massive volatility. Sure enough, we experienced a pullback, the exact same thing that happened when we got rejected right here in November 2024 at this complacency dead cat bounce. We're seeing that rejection happen right now. So depending on how much lower we go, I'd expect there to be some type of pullback and inevitably a breakout to the upside, because we're still below $1.64 trillion for the altcoin market. And we're still well below the all-time high of 1.7 trillion. So while Bitcoin is having its fun up here in price discovery relative to its past highs of 2021, the altcoin market still all the way down here for everything outside of Bitcoin. So that tells me that this bull run is not over yet. We're not in euphoria stage. By the moment that we're doing something like this, then we're in euphoria stage, and then we're going to have our talks about the bear market coming in. But until then, you guys still have plenty of opportunity to make money. In fact, you have even more opportunity to make money during these short-term pullbacks because you can get better dips on your favorite projects. And if you want to see what are the top projects that our research team is spotting before they break out, then check them out through the link in the description below. For example, our research team posted GOAT on the 13th of October of 2024 when it was right at a penny, and since then it rallied to over $1, 5,000%. That's like turning $1,000 into over $50,000. Our team called Pendle at only a $16 million market cap, or 16 cents, back on February 18th of 2023, all the way back here, and since then it's rallied up over 4,000%. That's a 40x. It's like turning $1,000 into over $40,000. Our team also called BitTensor Tau September 15th, 2022, before the token was ever even launched. And since then, Tau has rallied over 2,000%. That's a 20x. Our team even said Solana is most likely to be one of the easiest trades next year, and this was posted December 29th, 2022, on the day that Solana bottomed out at around $8. And since then, Solana looks like it's up over 2,500%. That's a 25x. It's like turning $1,000 into over $25,000. The list goes on and on and on. Our team called Sui,
Ondo, and even some of the biggest cult-based meme coins like MOG back in July 20th of 2023, the day that MOG launched. So if you want to learn how our team is finding these altcoins before they explode, we just launched Altcoin Pro University, where our research team gives you real-time altcoin picks with explosive potential for this bull run, along with 100+ expert curated classes crafted by industry experts to discover these gems yourself, on top of our live weekly calls every single week for in-depth crypto market analysis and daily updates. And that's just a fraction of what we offer inside of Altcoin Pro University through the link below. And although we make no guarantees because crypto is definitely risky, guys, this is only $97 a month or $970 a year. If you want to save $194, getting 2 months for free and unlock some exclusive bonuses, just go through the link in the description below. Get in right now. Watch the 26-minute video covering everything that Altcoin Pro University offers to help you become the first millionaire in your family tree, if that's a goal of yours. And you can get started through the link in the description below right now, or you can go to bullrunners.com to take advantage of the bonuses we're giving you before they expire. Everyone is loving the community. They're loving the education. They're getting access to real-time altcoin picks first before we ever make videos about them. So click the link in the description below, watch the video, and I'll see you on the inside.